Hello and welcome to Travel Beans. I'm Alex and this is Emma. We are a couple who have been travelling for 8 years and it is now our full-time job.
And in that 8 years, we have not once decided to sit and count the number of countries that we've been to together. So that's what we're going to do today, scratching off this map as we go and telling a few stories.
Having just returned back to the UK to a national COVID lockdown, we thought there would be no better time to stop and look back over the past 8 years of travel and finally use our scratch map. Be sure to subscribe to be notified of our upcoming series where we will be delving deeper into the full story.
I haven't really been into counting the countries I've been to since I was quite young. When you're backpacking, it's kind of a dick measuring contest between who can establish themselves in the hierarchy, who's the best.
Like in the hostel. Hi, how are you? What's your name? How many countries have you been to? Also, once you get to I don't know, 20 countries plus, you start to just sound like a bit of a dick, like you're trying to show off with how many countries you've been to, so we don't really do it so often anymore. But in turn, we have no idea how many countries we've been to. When
people say to me how many countries they've been to, I kind of automatically roll my eyes at them like, okay, cool. Cool story, bro. So that's exactly what we're doing today.
Woo!
As a British couple, you might think that the UK would be the first place, but we met actually in Thailand.
We did.
So, first scratching.
Okay. So satisfying. So we met in a place in Thailand called Pai, which is right in the north, a few hours north of the city of Chiang Mai.
We were both backpacking on our own solo backpacking ventures. I think we didn't really have many or any intention for at least long-term romantic partners.
Speak for yourself, mate.
But here we are 8 years on. We have a video on the channel about how we met, which goes into more detail, but I wasn't supposed to be in Pai, and I had a crazy story where I should have been going to a place called Nong Khai to teach football, and on the day that I was supposed to leave, I had a very uneasy feeling that I can't explain to this day, and I decided when I got onto the bus that was about to take me there that I had the idea to flip a coin to see heads or tails if I should stay, and the coin told me to stay, so I got off that bus, and I then found out the next day that a bus went off a cliff. Actually went off a cliff.
So you really wouldn't have been in Pai if you got on that bus?
Yeah, so within that week I went to Pai and I met Emma and my life changed dramatically.
In our upcoming series where we are going to be going through the entire story of our journey to full-time travel, we will be going into far more detail, but quick overview is after we met in Thailand, we then travelled together through Laos, Cambodia and back to Thailand again. It's time for me to get scratching.
Laos is a fantastic country that I definitely would recommend to a lot of people. It's extremely untouched compared to Thailand, and the same goes for Cambodia. It has a very depressing history but extremely interesting, and you're going to find things like beaches that you just won't believe.
Yeah, but actually Cambodia is where I saw bioluminescent plankton for the first time, the ones that glow when you go in the water at night. Amazing and completely mind-blowing. I'm not very good at staying inside the lines, so it's going to have to be a little bit messy. But there we go, we've got Laos, Cambodia and Thailand.
After this, Emma and me went separate ways. Yes. Emma flew to Australia for a pre-booked 1 year working holiday experience there.
Yeah, I was super excited. I started out, I flew to Darwin, and it was about a week until we spoke to each other and you decided to come and join me.
So that was the next place. We went and spent a whole year in Australia together, and we did the classic things of road trips and day trips and just exploring everything that Australia has to offer. It is an awesome country. It's massive.
So
absolutely
big.
Massive.
Yeah, and when you do road trips around Australia, nothing can prepare you for the size of it. It's amazing. So when we were reunited up in Cairns in the top right here, we then saved up. We were working in a casino, so all kinds of crazy hours of the night and day, so that we could buy a 4x4, which we then took down the east coast of Australia. That trip was epic.
We then got to Sydney and had some of the best jobs of our life to this day. Emma worked giving tours in an aquarium, and I worked as an activities coordinator in an international school, which basically meant that I had to just be the master of fun and make sure that the students want to stay in the school. So I got to go and play volleyball on the beach, take them surfing on weekends, have fun games, go to the pub. It was
a job. After a year in Australia, we then flew to Malaysia for another backpacking adventure.
The highlight for us, definitely had to be Borneo. It was
amazing.
Unbelievable. We got to see orangutans, the proboscis monkeys, just so much wildlife there. But that's somewhere I'd highly recommend for diving, snorkeling, and just safariing in general.
After Malaysia, we completed our backpacker circle of this area here, and we went to Vietnam for the first time, and that was incredible. We spent a month going from Ho Chi Minh in the south all the way up to Hanoi.
This is when we flew to the UK. We hadn't been in our home countries together. We had been travelling around for 18 months to about 2 years at this point. We both got corporate jobs within a week of getting home, so we ended up actually doing long distance relationship for our entire time back in the UK.
It's a weird way around to do it, because when we first met and we were backpacking, it was obviously cheaper to share accommodation. So we basically lived together straight away, then we
moved away.
away into long distance. Very strange.
During that time, we went to a few places. So, firstly, we went to Ireland.
Yes.
And Emma actually surprised me, because we were doing long distance relationship, with a series of clues that eventually led me to Ireland. And it's funny because it was actually quicker for us to fly to Ireland than to drive to each other's place. Later on in our travels, that story went on to become viral, and it led to Emma being the Lad of Lad Bible and making it into publications like Daily Mail.
Very weird. During that time, we also did a couple of sort of weekend away trips. So we also visited Spain and Italy.
We have been to many of these countries on here a number of times. We're not going to mention it each time we've been there, but for example, Spain and Italy, our best memories have come at a later date. For me, the highlight of Spain was seeing Liverpool win the Champions League in Madrid.
And we slept in a car, a tiny little, compact car for 5 nights on the drive to get there. It was an adventure in itself. It's well worth going back and watching that.
Also, Italy, we did a series recently, and those are definitely the highlights of my time in Italy.
It was incredible.
Making pizzas in a pizza oven was just...
At the beaches look like something from the Maldives. They are so pristine, so blue and clear. Oh, my days.
And finally, filling up Emma's jugs was one of the best things. Filling up wine and Prosecco on tap was...
From a petrol pump.
This was the end of our corporate years after about 1.5 to 2 years, saving up to go away again and to start our YouTube channel. So
Yes.
Travel Beans was now officially about to be born.
I know. So our first ever videos was on this next trip. So we basically did a trip all around Europe with a group of friends in a couple of camper vans. This trip was especially weird for us because the whole reason we were able to do this trip is because we were going as models.
Our friend that we'd met on a previous trip had asked us if we would be willing, as he was a photographer, to be models around Europe. But
Bearing in mind we were much thinner and younger and more attractive back then.
The
It's
good
not
old
like
days.
us now being asked that question. So it wasn't as crazy. But yeah, I mean, it was in exchange for doing a trip around Europe with friends for a month. It sounded epic. So we did that. When we left the UK, we went through Belgium, Germany, Czech Republic, Slovakia, Hungary, Croatia, Slovenia, Italy, Austria, through France, and then back to the UK again.
this trip was an absolute blast, and I think I have to say that the highlight was getting engaged in Czech Republic.
Me saying that I would marry you after all.
Yeah, but we're now 5-6 years on
Yeah.
from then, and we're still not been married. We always think that we would rather spend the money on more travel than put onto a wedding.
It's a constant battle of family and friends saying, when's it gonna happen? When's it gonna happen? And we just spend all of the money on travel. Sorry guys.
Now the time I'm most excited for actually on this whole thing is because we did the Trans-Siberian, which means we get to scratch off Russia.
I want to say I'm excited because it is satisfying to do, but it takes ages. We have to keep pausing the camera.
Also, it's funny because we did Russia, Mongolia and China, so we're going to get to scratch all of this off. But it does feel a bit weird because, like, for example, in China on this trip was just Beijing. So we're going to scratch off all of China because we just went to Beijing.
It feels like we're cheating a little bit. Russia was incredible. We did the Trans-Siberian Cross, which took, I think it was 6 days in total from Moscow to Beijing.
Including
so 6 days on a
3
train.
days straight on one train. That's from Moscow to Lake Baikal.
Which was a huge highlight for us, wasn't it, Lake Baikal?
So basically you get the train from Moscow to a place called Irkutsk. From here you can go to Lake Baikal, but if you are in the area, then it's well worth going to see.
It is, it's beautiful. My only regret is not staying there longer, to be honest, because there's so much to do and see there. They have bears and things as well, which we didn't get to see, which would have been awesome.
Also, Mongolia is well worth going. It's in my top 3 countries that I've ever been to.
Yeah. You arrive into Ulaanbaatar, the main city, and you might not think much of it, but as soon as you leave that city, my friends, you will be blown away by the scenery. Out of this world.
We should have never gone to Russia.
Ta-da! Russia!
I have lost all enthusiasm for this video now. I really don't want to do this anymore.
We haven't even started on the US and Canada yet. After our epic trip around Russia, Mongolia and China, we then flew to a place that dreams are made of.
So we went to the Maldives and we went for a whole month, and you should definitely check out our series coming soon that will explain this in more detail. But basically lied our way to free food, accommodation, trips for a whole month on an island in the Maldives.
Yeah, it was lush to say the least. Ugh.
That's one of those places that on paper it sounds good, and in reality it really was that good as well.
We weren't even staying in a fancy resort or anything, we were staying on a local island there, and it was perfection.
And even better, look, it's done.
So easy.
So after that we then flew to Sri Lanka, which is another place where we ended up using the experience that we got in the Maldives to get a load of work, and we've got fully booked for the whole month that we're in Sri Lanka.
We actually got pretty burnt out and didn't go and see all the stuff that we wanted to see because we were so busy working. So after that we kind of scaled it back on the working front.
I.e. by doing none. From there we went to Thailand again, and the next new country was to Myanmar. So Myanmar had kind of recently opened to the public. It had been closed for a very long time, and it was amazing. It's so untouched, so beautiful.
We did a 3-day, 60-kilometer trek through the wildlife and nature of Myanmar, and it was one of the best hiking experiences we've ever had. I mean, there were blisters, there were leeches, there was torrential rain, there was everything that you could have imagined, but it was also so beautiful and well worth going.
From here, we then made our way to South Korea, which was, again, surprisingly, a blast. And it's where we tried hitchhiking for the first time.
Yeah, well, actually, we tried a couple of things. We did couch surfing and we did hitchhiking. Incidentally, one led to the other. We actually met with a few different people from couch surfing, and one of them managed to persuade us to do hitchhiking for the first time in Korea.
If you are nervous about something like this, like couch surfing or hitchhiking, I'd really recommend doing it in a place like a very safe country like South Korea. Like, we didn't really get too far out of our comfort zone by doing these things, so you get to have those really authentic local experiences, but with a very low risk of danger.
And then from South Korea, we then flew to Japan, which is where we wanted to go and see the snow monkeys. So this was a bucket list thing for Al and I to go and do. We had seen these snow monkeys on a David Attenborough documentary, and there were these cute little macaques that would bathe in the hot springs in the mountains of Japan. And we said, if we go to Japan, we will 100% have to go there. And we did.
We have now been to Japan since then, at least I think 4 more times. It's such a great country, and the only way I can describe it is when you get there, it just has this feeling.
Something that I really love about Japan is how they've held on to their culture, at least through the aesthetics of the country. As you're walking around the buildings, the shops, all those kind of things just scream Japan, and it's such a safe yet different culture to experience.
After this was Taiwan, and we're going to count that. I'm sure there's some people that will maybe argue it's part of China. We're counting it as a country. We've also been to Hong Kong. We're going to count that as a country as well. The biggest highlight that I had in Taiwan was this weird pork bun thing.
Food! food.
It was amazing. I don't have so many memories of our time there apart from that. And we went to the toilet restaurant.
Oh yeah, the toilet restaurant. I was sick for the majority of the time I was there. I had the flu, so I was just in bed. But in the last couple of days, I managed to get out, and Al took me to the most romantic place you could possibly imagine, and we ate food out of toilet bowls.
From here, we then made our way to the Philippines for the first time. The first time we went to the Philippines, we hated it. We were there for a couple of weeks and we did all the wrong things, and it was just a very unenjoyable experience.
I say hated it, like there were definitely moments that we really enjoyed. We did canyoneering for the first time, and that was an absolute blast. But then we also did stuff like swimming with the whale sharks, which was not so fun.
Since then, we have gone back to the Philippines a number of times. We love it. It's one of our favourite countries to explore. If you're in the region of Southeast Asia, we highly recommend it, especially if you want to really get to know local people, because they have amazing English there. You actually get to really connect with the people there.
And everyone is so friendly and welcoming.
Next, we went to Bali for the first time.
It feels kind of wrong to scratch off the whole of Indonesia, because I know there's so much more to see there than just Bali.
But if Russia gets to get scratched off and China...
Sorry, Indonesia.
Our time in Bali was relatively uneventful, and things started to get weird from after this point.
Pretty weird.
So, we flew from there to India.
India was an interesting time for us. I guess it's kind of split into two parts. Part one is like normal trip to India. Your family came out to visit us, and we actually had like a family holiday for 2 weeks.
After that, we went up to the Himalayas. That's when things got really strange. We ended up working for a quad biking company up in the Himalayas.
It was incredible.
Yeah, at the same time, there was a Hollywood movie being shot on that location, and this will all be explained in a future series coming up, so make sure you're subscribed for that. But just a long story short, we ended up becoming friends with the crew, ended up then filming our own TV show and cancelling all our plans. We were supposed to be going to Nepal next, but instead we ended up flying to Hollywood and to New York to start editing and pitching our show.
So this was our first time in the US. Now, I actually grew up in the US. I was there until I was 12 years old and had a full-on American accent and everything, which we will be going into more details in our big series. But as you can see with the Russia situation, the big countries take a while. So I think I'm going to do the state by state. So when we first flew there, we went to California.
Outside of the TV show stuff that was happening, we got to go and see our friend that we did the trip in Europe with, and he took us on a big road trip of California. And the national parks out there are just mind-blowing.
Outrageous.
So good. Americans like to be proud. And
they should
be proud for this. There's other things they shouldn't be so proud about, but try and tell them that.
That's such a wind-up. Oh yeah, and so when we did our road trip with our friend Micah, he woke us up one day and he was like, hey guys, do you want some tacos for lunch? And we're like, sure, tacos sound great, where should we go? And he was like, Mexico. So
we got to drive down, well, just down this peninsula here to Mexico, but I think all Mexico has to go.
I also do just want to mention that we did stay in Mexico, so this is why it's getting counted. If we just went for lunch and then drove back to California and didn't stay over, it wouldn't count. But because we stayed there a couple of nights, it counts.
So after this, we flew over to New York, and this is such a quick overview of all the events that happened. But we went to New York, we continued to edit a TV show, pitch it, did some fun things, like I went to go and see a friend of ours, and we got to spend 4th of July on Staten Island, and it was
that was amazing.
Very American.
So American.
And our friend was a firefighter, so we got to go to the firehouse, and I got to go down the pole. It was just amazing. And then from here, we then did a trip in an RV around a number of different states, going up to Chicago. Once we left the US after this, we then headed to Canada.
Yeah.
And again, I would love to scratch all this off because it would visually look great. It's just too much.
It's going to take too long, and it gives us an opportunity to focus on some of these other places in the future.
We didn't actually do that much in Canada, to be honest. This was kind of like the peak of Emma's depression.
Yeah, we'd already booked our flights home, so we were really just waiting to go at this point. Other than Toronto, we did actually get outside of the city and visit a friend who lives on one of the lakes, and we also went to Niagara Falls, so that was a nice bucket list thing to check off too.
After this, we returned home, and this is where we kind of worked on ourselves mentally, had some counselling, and we got ourselves into a better place. And then, some exciting times was the digital nomad years.
The digital nomad years. This is the start of, I guess, our journey to where we are now, and probably one of the more exciting points in our travels because it made our travel sustainable.
So we only had £500 at the time of leaving England, and we kind of got sick of people saying they were so jealous of us, of travelling all the time, we're so lucky, and we thought we'd done a lot of sacrifices to be able to do that. So we decided with £500 we were going to leave and prove that it's possible. Money's just an excuse in a lot of cases.
Exactly.
So we left and we went to Thailand, and for this year where we went and lived in Thailand, we went to a lot of places that we'd already been to in the past, so Japan, Malaysia, Philippines again.
It's kind of like a little Asian base that we had to go off and explore more of those countries in full.
But the first one that we went to that we hadn't been to before was Singapore.
Yep, that's
tiny.
pretty easy to scratch off.
That was it for all the new places. So we then flew back to Europe and we went to Germany, and the next new place was to Poland. We loved Poland.
Poland was incredible. I didn't expect to like it as much as I did. The food was great, the people were friendly, and the nature was outrageously good. And we went in winter time as well, so there was snow, and we got to do some hiking in the snow, which was really nice because it was coming into the Christmas season. It got us feeling festive. We went to one of our favourite Christmas markets in Poland as well. That was beautiful.
It is definitely one of the most underrated places I've ever been to, and you shouldn't miss it if you are in the area.
After this, we then did a trip with Eric and Alison from the Endless Adventure, where we went to Austria and Slovenia before going back to the UK.
This was such a big moment for us because we went back to the UK, but this time we chose to go back. All the other times was because we run out of money or depression or both. This time was our choice. We wanted to be there, and I think that was a very big personal growth step for us. We did our UK series then, and we got to appreciate our own country, and I think it is important to explore your own country, and the more you travel, you should be able to, the things that you love from travel, you should be able to see in your own country. So I think it's a good thing. It's a good exercise for appreciation.
After 6 months back in the UK, we then went to our next new country, which blew my mind how much I loved this place. I cannot wait to go back again, and that is Turkey.
The food is just out of this world. Way better than I could ever imagined. The Turkish breakfasts are just
my goodness,
huge and delicious.
It's like having tapas for breakfast. It's incredible. You get all these little dishes just spread out all over the table, and it's an event in itself.
Also, Istanbul is my favourite city I've ever been in the whole world. It is the best. I love it so much. And then saying that as well, another thing that I loved was the Turkish bath. I got a Turkish bath experience where I got rubbed over by a beautiful Turkish man. Fantastic.
So when we left Turkey, we actually got an overnight train to Bulgaria, another new country for us, and we did some hiking in the Bulgarian mountains, and it was so beautiful and it felt so untouched, and it was really quiet. There was no one else there. It was beautiful. And then after that, we went across to Macedonia.
We didn't get long in Macedonia. We ended up flying last minute to China. We then came home again, and we went to do another series in the US, which this time we went around in the southwest in the deserts. This was top notch. Bloody loved it.
Yeah, this was the best time that we had in the US, because the first time there was always that kind of depression cloud over the whole experience, but this time was amazing. We did camper van road trips, which is our favorite way to travel, all around California, New Mexico, and Arizona.
And Nevada.
Oh, and Nevada,
There's always extra states. We then came back from here. We're in the UK, and we'd arranged to do a big trip around Europe. We had started it, and we were just in Scotland.
Yeah.
At the time, it was our first time we went to Scotland.
Yeah. Oh, you had that amazing curry in Glasgow. Do you remember?
And once we were here, that's when the coronavirus started to hit. We had to cancel everything and go home to the lockdown. After the lockdown, we managed to get out and escape for a few months.
Yeah.
And we went and did another trip around Europe, and we got one more country that we hadn't been to before, and that was Luxembourg.
Super quick.
Tiny country.
We campervanned around Belgium, Luxembourg and Germany before going to Czech Republic and revisiting the place that we got engaged.
We then went home and then did another trip, but this time driving our Fiat 500 all the way down to the south of Italy and then back into another lockdown in the UK, which is where we are right now.
Well, I mean, I guess if we'd have scratched off the whole of the US and Canada, it would look far more impressive, but I'm pretty pleased with this.
So obviously it looks like we've definitely done a lot of Asia. We've done Asia justice.
Yeah.
Quite clearly the missing gaps for us are Africa, South America.
Yeah.
So I have been to Brazil, for example, a few places in the north and the south of Africa. The same with Emma, she's been to plenty of other countries that we're not putting on this map now.
This is the Travel Beans map.
Yeah, so we have a lot of work to do.
We do. I know, it's kind of, you feel like you've been to so many places and then you do this and you're like, oh, I barely scratched the surface,
Nice. I'm actually really impressed by you.
Thank you.
Wow, I'm disappointed I didn't
cuff.
say that. It makes me want to go to some new countries. Like, we need to get out of our comfort zone again because we haven't been to many new places in the last few years.
No, and I always have the best experience when we're really out of our comfort zone. Like going to Russia on that big trip when we first started the channel was so exciting because it was something completely new and completely different. So leave in the comments, when was the last time you got out of your comfort zone and went somewhere completely new or completely different that you didn't expect?
Also, although I said at the start about counting countries, I love it again now. Leave in the comments, how many countries have you been to? Do you keep count of how many countries you go to?
And what countries are on your list to go to once all this virus stuff is done with?
Make sure you subscribe for our new series coming soon. I think you're going to love it. It shows how we went from zeros to heroes to zeros to whatever we are now.
In that series, we'll be going into so much more depth than we did today with all of our stories of places that we've been to and things that we've done, as well as touching a lot on mental health.
That series will be coming soon. It is a monster edit and it is taking a while to get through, but as soon as it's ready, it will be on the internet.
Probably in a week or two, I would guess. If you like the video, give us a big fat like.
And thank you so much for watching. We'll see you next time, and... Beans out!